will be realized.
All right, thank you very much, Aseto. And of course, Africa contributing less than 4%, yet paying the highest price. Let's move forward now. The contribution of fossil fuels from vehicles to the transport sector accounts about 13% of the country's total greenhouse gas emission. Now, as Kenya hosts the climate summit, stakeholders in the e-mobility space believe that electric public transport has the potential to address this pressing matter. Now, the convention will offer sustainable solutions towards attaining SDG goal number 11 on sustainable cities.
Straight, lakini ukiokota.
Now we change conversation.
Numbers and numbers.
Oh, they can't.
One of the biggest topics in discussion this year around around climate and moving towards attaining net zero emissions is sustainable cities. So we can't talk about cities without talking about transport. So one of the things we want to see at the African Climate Summit is how we'll be able to attain sustainable cities, green cities. And one of the biggest things that will be able to solve that or make us get there faster is electric buses, electric mobility, electric bicycles, electric, what do you call them, motorbikes. All that will be able to do so. And one of the challenges we're seeing, mostly as Africa, is also green financing. So if the financing that is promised comes to Africa and ideally reaches to the private sector who are working on these initiatives to get us towards sustainable cities, African Climate Summit will have served its purpose. We're also looking that African Climate Summit will open the eyes of stakeholders, the public, government, on the most reasonable and most practical solutions that we'll be able to do. We're talking about government extending incentives, which Kenya has done a lot. We will also want to talk about the private sector, everybody investing. We don't only want to have external or foreign investors. We also want local investments from local banks, from local financiers to be able to solve the problem faster. Yeah, so African Climate Summit will be a place where all of us will gather there and be able to hear all these problems. Africa contributes to 5% of all pollution in the world. So it's easier to deal with Africa and the effects will be felt faster because it's only 5%. Why public transport? Between 40 and 50% of all commute in Africa is using public transport. Hence, it's the biggest contributor of pollution. So if you're able to replace every diesel bus with an electric bus, for every bus you replace that is diesel, with an electric bus, you mitigate 60 tons of carbon annually. So if you were to transform all the diesel buses in Africa with electric buses, you would have solved more than 80% of all the pollutions in Africa.
All right, thank you very much. And of course, now we want to cross over to the KICC, where our very own Noah Kipkemoi